History is studded with dynamic duos who have altered life as we know it. Take the gaming world for example. Back in 2017, the free-to-play battle royale game called Fortnite was released, and it quickly rose to popularity amongst gamers across the globe. It even encouraged non-gamers to begin playing. The game is available in 3 distinct game mode versions that otherwise share the same general gameplay and game engine, but players, both young and old, love it nonetheless. In fact, it has even won various global awards for its success as a video game. People love it because of its versatility. As its founder said, the genre thing is overrated, and the platform decisions are overrated. It's what we see on Fortnite. So many of these gamers play on a variety of devices, so you can't say they're a mobile gamer or a console gamer. They're just a gamer. According to a report by Fox Business, the Fortnite franchise's net worth is estimated to be around $2 billion, and it doesn't seem like they will be running out of ideas to further develop the game soon. Fortnite was created by Epic Games, the multi-billion-dollar video game and software developer and publisher based in the United States. Epic Games is the brainchild of Sweeney and Mark Rein, and they have been able to touch countless lives with their games. They have also been able to build up individual net worths that each amount to billions of dollars. How were they able to build up Epic Games and eventually come up with one of the biggest games in the history of gaming? Welcome back to Business Explained.
Let's get down to business.
Since his childhood, Sweeney was known to have an affinity for technology. He was raised in Potomac, Maryland, and he was the youngest of 3 brothers. At such a young age, Sweeney became interested in messing around with mechanical and electrical devices. When he was only 5 years old, Sweeney had taken apart a lawn mower piece by piece to build his own go-kart. He soon became interested in arcade games when they began to become popular in the late 1970s, particularly because he was entranced by the mechanisms within the arcade games that made him function. However, he was not too keen on playing video games himself. Though the family had an Atari 2600 to play with, Sweeney was not as interested in the games for that. He later went on to say that he had not played many video games in his life, and he was only able to bring very few to completion. However, his inspiration for tinkering with computers became full-blown when he was able to visit his brother at work. At the age of 11, Sweeney visited his older brother's new startup in California, where he had access to the early versions of IBM personal computers. Sweeney spent the week with his brother, learning basic coding and programming, thus establishing his interest in programming. He was already able to experience using a Commodore 64 before, but Sweeney was much more taken by how easy the IBM PC was to use. When his family got an Apple II, Sweeney began learning how to program on that device. He tried to make Adventure 2 in the spirit of the Atari 2600 game that he and his brothers had while they were growing up. Sweeney estimates that between the ages of 11 and 15 he had spent over 10,000 hours teaching himself how to program using information that he had gotten from online bulletin boards, and he was able to complete several games. However, he never shared these games with others. They were mostly for his own consumption and practice. Like another famous computer guy, Sweeney was quite the businessman during his earlier years. As a teenager, he was able to make a good deal of money by offering to mow lawns of wealthy residents near where he lived, and that was what he used to buy himself things that he enjoyed. Later on, in 1989, Sweeney ended up attending the University of Maryland taking up mechanical engineering. However, this did not mean that Sweeney was no longer interested in computers. In fact, you could say his interest only grew at that point, especially when his father, who, at that time, was working for the Defense Mapping Agency, gave him an IBM personal computer of his own. Driven by his interest in computers, Sweeney set up Potomac Computer Systems from his parents' home to offer others assistance with computers. Unfortunately, it never took off and he ended up having to shelf the company. However, this did not hinder him from diving deeper into the world of computers. This setback eventually led to him having an idea that we would soon come to know as Epic Games. Although much is known about Sweeney's life, I cannot say the same for his partner, Mark Rein. Little is known about Mark Rein's childhood and background, but he did get his start in the video game when he got in touch with John Romero, who, at the time, was working for id Software. Rein was an avid fan of the game series Commander Keen, so Romero let him play as Commander Keen 4, which was still being developed back then. Because of Rein's work, id Software brought him in as its probationary president, and he handled the business side of things. He was able to negotiate for a lot of id Software's games, but he was later on let go from the company because he did not see eye to eye with the other members of the staff. However, there was one silver lining. He would soon meet Tim Sweeney and their lives would change for good. Back in college, Sweeney had the idea of creating games that could be sold. He then spent his time programming them at night or over weekends outside of his work in college. Because of this, he needed to create a text editor based on the Pascal language to be able to program the game, which led to the idea of making a game out of the text editor itself. This became the basis of ZZT. After receiving tons of good feedback from peers and colleagues, he decided to sell this to other computer users. He then ended up revitalizing Potomac Computer Systems to sell ZZT. The game sold like hotcakes, making at least $100 a day. Because of that, Sweeney decided to build a career out of developing games. However, he needed a better name for a video game company, so he renamed Potomac Computer Systems to Epic Mega Games. Sweeney soon began his search for a reliable business partner, and eventually caught up with Mark Rein. Rein had just left his job and relocated to Toronto, Ontario, and this was a great opportunity for him to get back into the gaming scene. So, Rein worked remotely from Toronto, where primarily handled everything related to sales, marketing, and publishing deals. Because of his work, business development boomed. And Sweeney found that Rein's work seemed to have significantly contributed to the company's growth. So, Sweeney stepped back and let Mark do his thing. As Sweeney said, "Whenever there is somebody at Epic who is capable of doing something better than me, I let them at it." And it was good that he did that. Pretty soon, Epic Mega Games had 20 employees consisting of programmers, artists, designers and composers. The following year, the company grew even more and they had over 30 employees facilitating Epic's day-to-day operations. Now, Epic Mega Games is worth billions of dollars, $28 billion to be exact. Sky News reported in March 2021 that Epic Games was closing on another financing round that raised an additional $1 billion to the company, establishing it as one of the top 10 largest startup companies. However, although Epic is well loved by gamers all over the world, it is not exactly in the best of terms with other major tech companies. Currently, tech giant Apple and Epic Games are battling it out in court, with news outlets labeling it as the clash of the corporations. Epic Games has been very vocal about how it did not agree with Apple and Google's gatekeeping of their respective platforms, claiming that the 30% cuts that the App Store and Google Play take from game developers is too high. In August of 2020, Epic Games made the decision that enough was enough and released a statement to their fans saying that it would allow customers to buy credit in the game without having to use Apple or Google's payment systems. However, this was a direct violation of Apple and Google's developer rules. So, how did the app platforms respond? They removed Fortnite from their platforms. Epic retaliated with its lawyers and filed a civil lawsuit. They claimed that Apple was in breach of antitrust laws, and the case will be heard in May. So far, both Apple and Epic have filed their fact findings in separate documents of more than 300 pages each. However, if you recall, this is not the first time Apple has been accused of breaching antitrust laws. The tech giant has received a lot of complaints about its practices over the years, but their feud with Epic Games is certainly one of the most heated. But, Epic Games is here to stay. In an article by Polygon, Sweeney discusses how Epic Games has 4 lives and is constantly innovating and reinventing itself to stay in the game. Surviving for this long, according to Tim Sweeney, requires change. He says that Epic Games should have already died 3 times, but the company's and its staff's willingness to evolve and the constant support of the Unreal Engine has saved the company repeatedly. As Sweeney says, the ongoing metamorphosis of Epic Games is one driven by business acumen and attention to finance. However, many others claim that it is Sweeney and Rein's foresight that keep the ship afloat. Fortnite may just be indicative of the company's further growth in the future. According to Sweeney, "We feel the game industry is changing in some major ways. Fortnite is a harbinger of things to come. It's a massive number of people all playing together, interacting together, not just playing but socializing." And he is right. The gaming scene is filled with all sorts of individuals from various walks of life, all of them brought together by a game they enjoy, cherish and communicate through. Epic Games does not merely manufacture games, it manufactures shared experiences, memories we can all hold onto for the years to come. The world became devastated as the coronavirus pandemic began. Its effects were felt across the globe, as people lost their loved ones, livelihoods, and social lives while the virus raged on. However, we all began to feel hopeful when news reports about vaccines being developed to combat the virus were released. A coronavirus vaccine means that our lives can get back to normal more quickly, something I'm sure that we all want to happen. We have been hoping for a vaccine since the day the pandemic started, and now that vaccines are being rolled out, we can hopefully breathe a little easier. Suffice to say, whoever was able to come up with the vaccine for coronavirus is extremely wealthy by now. To give you a number, one of the people who was able to come up with the coronavirus vaccine currently has a net worth of $5 billion. Today, at the time of writing, he is up by 3.94%, or $189 million. His name is Ugur Sahin, a scientist with a focus on immunotherapy. Sahin is the CEO and co-founder of German biotech firm BioNTech, a name you are probably very familiar with if you have been watching the news in the past year. How exactly did Sahin build up BioNTech and eventually develop the coronavirus vaccine? You can check it out in the video up on your screen now, so click away, sit back, relax, and see you in the next video.